Why do you sometimes feel mentally exhausted, even on days when you barely did anything? You wake up, go through a normal day, maybe answer a few messages, scroll a little, finish a couple small tasks, and somehow, by evening, your brain feels completely drained. Not physically tired, but mentally heavy, like your mind has been running all day, even though nothing major actually happened. Most people assume this kind of exhaustion comes from thinking too much. Too many worries, too many problems, too much overthinking. But there's another explanation that is much less obvious. You're not tired because you're thinking too much. You're tired because your brain is holding too many thoughts that never fully end. Your mind is constantly opening mental loops, but very few of them actually close. Think about what happens during a normal day. You read a message but don't respond yet. You remember something you need to do later. You think about a conversation from yesterday. You start planning something for next week. You see something online that makes you question your own life. You begin thinking about it, but then your attention moves somewhere else. Every one of those moments creates a small mental loop, a thought that starts but never reaches a conclusion. Your brain keeps it open in the background, just in case it becomes important again. Now imagine dozens of those loops happening every hour. Things you should reply to, things you should decide, things you should fix, conversations you replay in your head, plans you haven't figured out yet, questions about your future that don't have answers. Your brain doesn't simply forget these things, it holds them, quietly. And holding unfinished thoughts takes energy. This is why mental exhaustion often appears on days when you didn't physically work that hard. Because your brain wasn't tired from effort, it was tired from carrying too many open loops at the same time. Now here's where it gets interesting. Some people believe the solution is simply to rest. To do less, relax more, slow down. And sometimes that helps. But rest doesn't automatically close mental loops. You can lie on your bed for hours and still feel mentally overwhelmed if your brain is holding unfinished thoughts in the background. Because the real source of mental fatigue is not activity, it's incompletion. Your brain naturally wants closure. It wants to finish what it starts. When something stays unresolved, your mind keeps returning to it again and again, trying to complete the pattern. But modern life constantly interrupts that process. You start thinking about something, and a notification pulls your attention away. You begin solving a problem, and another task appears. You try to focus, but new information keeps entering your mind. So your brain keeps opening new loops faster than it can close the old ones. And eventually, your mind becomes crowded with unfinished thoughts, questions without answers, decisions without conclusions, plans without clear outcomes. Even small things contribute to this. Messages you haven't replied to yet, things you meant to do but postponed, conversations you wish had gone differently, goals you're not sure how to reach. Each one stays quietly active in your mental background, and the more loops your brain holds, the more cognitive energy it consumes. That's when you begin to feel mentally drained, even though your day looked easy from the outside. Your mind wasn't resting, it was holding. Now, here's the deeper question. Why does modern life create so many unfinished thoughts? Because the world around you constantly pushes your attention forward before your mind has time to complete anything. Endless information, endless choices, endless things to think about. Your brain becomes a system that starts thinking about things faster than it can resolve them, and eventually, the mental weight builds up. That's why sometimes the most exhausting days are not the busiest ones. They're the days where your brain opened hundreds of small mental loops without closing many of them. And when that happens, your mind begins to feel cluttered, not with activity, but with unfinished thinking. The strange part is that most people respond to this exhaustion in ways that make the problem worse. They distract themselves, they scroll more, they consume more information, they open even more loops just to escape the feeling of mental overload. But distraction doesn't close mental loops, it only postpones them. So the background pressure stays there, and that's why mental exhaustion keeps returning. Not because your life is too hard, but because your mind rarely reaches the point where things feel mentally complete. When your brain experiences closure, something different happens. Your attention settles, your thoughts become quieter, your mind feels lighter. Not because nothing exists to think about, but because fewer thoughts remain unfinished. That's when your brain actually feels rested. Not when you stop doing things, but when your mind stops holding so many open loops at once. So the next time you feel mentally drained, even though you didn't do much, ask yourself a different question. Not, how much work did I do today? But, how many unfinished thoughts is my brain still carrying right now? Because sometimes the real reason you're tired is not the amount of thinking you did. It's the number of thoughts that never reached an ending. And once you start noticing those mental loops, you begin to understand something important about your mind. Your brain doesn't just need rest, it needs resolution. And understanding that difference can completely change how you see your own exhaustion. If you've ever felt mentally tired for no clear reason, you're not the only one experiencing this. Many people live with dozens of unfinished mental loops every day without realizing how much energy it consumes. And the moment you start noticing them, your mind finally gets the chance to close a few. And that alone can make your mental energy feel completely different. If this made you think about your own mind in a new way, make sure to subscribe and like. The more you understand how your mind actually works, the easier it becomes to stop patterns that quietly drain your energy every day.